Are from Tiara International, and we're doing our thing where on Fridays we just chime in with whatever topic we have been discussing amongst ourselves and share that live on Facebook. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Betsy Sobiek. I'm one of the Tiara International partners. And today we have also from the Chicago area, Elizabeth Rusky.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
And then from the Netherlands, we have Andrea Henning.
Hi, I'm here.
And Francisca Decker.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. So depending on our time zone, it's either noonish on Friday or early evening on Friday. So it's a good time, as Beth just said, to talk about well-being. And as I think about this conversation for this week, I feel like this is one of both the most inspiring puzzles for us to solve for people in leadership roles, or really any kind of lifestyle role where they're leading community, family, work, etc. I also feel in some ways it's like the most frustrating and heartbreaking because there's so much that we know to do for ourselves in terms of well-being versus being productive. And there's so much we wish for our closest friends and colleagues that they would just do differently to take care of themselves and take a break or take a breath. Yet when it comes down to it, we really still get stuck in this cycle and this tension that feels like it's an either or sort of push-pull between well-being and taking care of yourself and being productive and getting things done, contributing, being of value. So we just wanted to talk about it a little bit today and see if we can shed some light on, first of all, what the issue is, the heart of the tension, and then what are some easy ways that we can try to break that cycle for ourselves and in our workplaces. So it's going to be kind of a free-for-all. So chime in, everybody, whenever you want. I think the first thing I would love to hear more from one of you on is, what really is this tension between well-being and being productive, and why does it even exist? Like, why does it exist? How does it feel? What is the root of the tension?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to tell just a very quick story. I have been working on the concept we'll talk about is well-being not being a reward, so this concept of working really hard and then rewarding yourself. We're gonna debunk that when we talk. But the thing about it is, I actually had a practice that I put in my phone that I would have little alarms go off that would remind me to breathe, just to take a deep breath, just relax in the moment, keep going with what I'm doing. So I was trying to integrate a well-being practice every day. And I found myself sitting, and I found the reason I was doing this is because I was, heads down, trying to work hard, crack out a whole bunch of stuff and just keep going till I was done. Like that was the plan, the strategy. So I put these little reminders in my schedule. And the funny thing is that the reminder would go off. I would pick up my phone. I would look at it. It would say, breathe deeply, Beth. And I would hit delete. And I wouldn't breathe deeply. Like, talk about insanity. I mean, that's just
right. It takes so long to breathe deeply, right?
Exactly. Like a whole nanosecond. Like, what is
I know, but that's exactly it. Like, we're so worried about interrupting our productivity cycle that we don't even take a breath. Andrea, what were you going to say also, just to get into
I mean, over the years, I know myself pretty well. And it's always funny how I feel myself speed up instead of slow down when there's something needs to be done. And I'm so good at it. I really can speed up, and then I can squeeze stuff in, and I can just make up a different sequence and squeeze even more stuff in, where actually more productive would be to slow down and kind of redirect and refocus. And I have that especially when I'm traveling and need to catch planes or trains or anything like that. So it's the speeding up when the best thing should be slowing down. And I know that a couple of years ago, I got this great postcard from a friend of mine, and it said take some rest, especially if you do not have the time for it. And that's just brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Francisca, any opening thoughts from you?
Yeah, I would think that well-being is a state of being that you can temporarily achieve, but it's never an end goal that will stay on forever. You can find, or I can find myself in this space of well-being for a while, and then all of a sudden it will disappear. It's either there or it's not there. And I think that that is partly explained because nothing and nobody is really static. Everything is always moving and evolving. We ourselves, as human beings, as professionals, we are evolving all the time. And at the same time, our environment and situations are also changing. So it's a very unstable state by itself. So tension is sort of, you cannot escape it.
I love that, because I think one of the myths that we often try to debunk is this myth of work-life balance. And like you just described, there is never any balance. Like there's always something that's pulling your priority, or something that feels like it came out of the woodwork as a surprise that you have to handle. So it's more like continually calibrating yourself in relationship to everything that you have going on, as opposed to having this like perfect balance and perfect well-being that's consistent over time. It's really more of like an ebb and a flow, I would say, because at any given time, maybe family does take top priority, but there could be another time where work takes top priority. And that's really fine if it's something that you're choosing, it's something that feels good, you know why you're doing it, and then you feel like you've achieved that ebb and flow over time of whether it's well-being or balance, or feeling like you have all of your priorities really paid attention to in a meaningful way.
Betsy, you asked the question about, where does this tension come from? Like, and why is it, why does it appear to be so hard? I actually think well-being, which to me is being well, right? Being well is about the being. Clearly, the word's in there. It's about being. And when we talk about, producing results or productivity, that's a very doing mindset. So the well-being is kind of, this be, and the productivity is the do. And there's a natural tension between those two states as well. And I think we as human beings are really great. I've said human people, we'll stop using the word beings. Human people are really great at doing things, and our identity gets, tied into that, and we get rewarded for doing it. But nobody is actually giving us rewards for being. I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Well, I worded the title of this particular discussion very specifically around the tension between well-being and being productive. So I put the word being in both places because just to try to make them a little bit closer. And so you're right, there is, because you have to sometimes do something to foster well-being, and you sometimes have to be in a certain mindset to be productive. I don't know if they're as far apart as we think they are. And I'm curious about how you can be well and be productive, at the same time. Yeah, you're right. There does feel like well-being is more passive or something like that, or intrinsically valued. And productivity is more externally valued and feels like it's a more active kind of energy.
Yeah. But to your point, Betsy, like about the tension between the two, I tend to be the most productive when I am in a kind of basic relaxed state. And I think I did a better job when I was younger and still going to school, that I realized like just taking a breath or taking a step away from something, going outside, or maybe even just sleeping a night over something, I immediately felt fresh to start the next morning. I sometimes am a little bit puzzled why I don't do that, or in what circumstances I forget that, because taking a breath and taking a break, I mean, all the most productive artists or writers, they say the same thing. Like sometimes when you're so focused on something, you have to distract yourself, and then the creativity hits or chimes in again.
I think the other thing, when I think about the question of how did we get here, or what's the cause of this tension. Um, you know, we now, and I'll speak specifically for women in the world, and especially here in the States and in Europe, we can do a lot. Like we can have families, we can have work, we can own businesses, we can lead global corporations. There's a lot that we can do and impact and influence, and we know it. One of the problems is I still think we feel like because we have that opportunity that we should do it all, and we should do it all well, and we should do it all today. And then we compare ourselves to what we see what other women are doing, and how physically fit they are, what kind of parent they are, or how their business is growing or something, and then we kind of feel like we should do more. So it also seems like we're kind of unwilling to just stop the madness and be like, okay, so the three things I'm really going to focus on are X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to totally focus on saving the environment right now because someone else has that ball, and I'm going to do some other things. But then you immediately feel totally guilty, like, crap, I should be saving the environment too. And I can't believe I just said that publicly on a video, because who thinks I should be saving the environment? So I think we get ourselves into that spin too. Like we should be doing everything and doing it well and doing it now because we can and we know about it.
I actually think that is a predicament of our time more than anything, whether it's the social media or the sense of urgency, in the media, or the ways that we stay in communication with each other. I got a text from a client late last night, and they were asking me to respond to something, and I'm thinking, first of all, it's 10 o'clock at night. I shouldn't have even had my phone in my hand. I did, but it's like one of those things where it's like, you're just pulled, like the judgment. And Francisco, we talk about this all the time. The judgment crept in immediately. Like, should I respond right now? I could respond right now. Am I going to respond right now? No, don't respond right now. I mean, like the insanity of the conversation that went on in my head. I just should have put the phone in the other room.
I know.
Yes, but so this is a very general attribute of our times, and it's valid for both men and women. So what would you say? How would it be different for women as compared to men?
For women as compared to men, I think I do think it is both, but I think we as women in our societies, I think we carry a lot more responsibility for more things. Now, I'm saying that is a general statement. It's not every person, every situation. And for me in my own personal life, my husband was an at-home dad when our sons were growing up, but I was still the person the school called. And I would be like, well, why are they calling me? He's at home, call him, right? But there were just things that we keep taking on or allowing to be put on us. And I actually think men do a great job of keeping, some of those priorities in place. I think I give them credit.
And early on, we did some work as we were building our model together, just to discern, even though there's some just marginal differences, but what does the science say about brain functionality and how men actually respond or react to things differently than women? Not as a good, bad, better, worse kind of thing, but just to really see, like, is there anything to this whole feminine way of doing something that even is rooted in science? And at that time, a lot of studies were showing that the way female brain is designed to solve problems is very interconnected. Like when a problem goes into a female brain, it kind of jumps all around. So like when Beth gets a text message at 10 p.m., she's not just answering that question, she's thinking about a million other things that go into that response to that question. And that the male brain, in the past at least, everything may be evolving to be a little bit more blended, but the male brain is more compartmentalized. So they solve that problem and then that's it. They just they have a problem to solve, their brain solves that problem, and then they switch gears to look at another problem, which is highly useful. and really great as far as like prioritizing and getting something done with a measurable result. So Francisca, to your question, it just made me think of that body of research that we have looked at a couple of times, that it just is a nature of the cross connection and the ability to see how the big picture and the ability to bring in lots of data from different places instinctually versus solving the problem that's just asked of you to solve and what that causes thinking.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
do,
yeah.
do we think then that this tension is about volume? That would be a question for us. Is it about volume? Is it just the amount of stuff?
Now I can also see another word that came to my mind was the word distraction. So what you also said, Beth, when you saw this mail coming in, you were distracted from whatever you were doing at the moment, and I can see that especially in my life and also in Francisca's life a lot. She but you can talk for yourself, but you are taking care of your parents right now, and her dad is calling her maybe 10 or more times a day, and always and whenever it distracts her from what she's doing, and I can feel that I can be distracted, and then because I'm such a good problem solver, so I just solve that problem there for the next 5 minutes, and then I go back, and this is really exhausting. So I'm less able to just focus on one thing and keep the world out. And maybe that's also tied to how our brain works, Betsy. But I find this really, really exhausting, and that might be also a key to take on to stay more focused. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great book that it's the productivity experiment, I think, or the productivity project. And what the author says is he says that people mistakenly try to manage time when really it's about focus and attention and energy, because those are the things you can really manage. So if you have good energy, which is integrating that well-being piece, you know what you have your attention on as far as your priorities, and then you manage your focus. So you limit the distractions. That's really the key to it. And I like that it includes that well-being piece too. I would say the other factor, so I think yes to volume and awareness of everything that is happening in the world that we could be a part of. I think distractions, like things pinging and distracting us from just getting something done, for sure. The other thing I think is just guilt. Like, I just think the pervasive feeling that people feel, any way you slice it, is guilty. Like, if I have an easy week or it feels like I'm not too busy, I feel guilty, both because maybe I'm not doing what I should for whatever, or because I know some of my friends are having a really tough week, or my business partners. So that, but then if I have a really busy week and I'm just like exhausted at the end of it, even if I loved every part of it, I feel guilty that I didn't do what I was supposed to do around the house or for myself, or I'm not spending time with more people. So I don't know exactly what that is about, but it feels like that's a very pervasive experience that people feel, that they just feel guilty about all the stuff they're not doing all the time, whether it's on the side of producing results or taking care of themselves.
Well, you're bringing up a comment. Yeah, this is about presence. I mean, women have, and this is decades long conversation of working moms, at-home moms, quality versus quantity time with your family, with your children. And I think the best advice we can give people, and for us to take ourselves, is to be present, to be in this moment. So when we're talking about these distractions, like, I actually have a trick that I do when I have to be present. I have to really focus. I have to put all those distractions out. I actually put on Taco Bell's Canon, and I put it on an instrumental, and it plays on a loop. I have my earphones in, and whatever I'm doing, if I'm typing, if I'm thinking, and I do that for, like, that thing can be on a loop for 3 hours, and it's just something that keeps going, and it's keeping some of those distractions out, and it's helping me be present.
Yeah.
I'm curious about you guys in terms of being present and how that relates to this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's a lot easier being present when I'm in my work. Like yesterday, I had I facilitated a team meeting, and it was actually about presence, because they had to feel into the future, not knowing. So we really had great conversations, and one of the rules is that you slow down and you deeply listen, and that serves me very well. So when I am in this kind of environments, I'm doing very well. Actually, also when I have to write certain things up, once I start, then I can be very much in this timeless space. And there are also other situations where I'm not. And I haven't thought that really through what the answer to that is. It's just interesting that sometimes it really comes very easy, and sometimes I can also freak out by all the kinds of things, that are on my plate. Yeah, feel overwhelmed. And I think maybe we all have our own like triggers when we get overwhelmed. It might be different for every person. And that is also something what we do with our model. We really grow awareness around who we really are and what are these triggers. And then actually, when you know the triggers, you can also plan ahead a little bit more, or think things through, what might be stressful for you and not, and maybe also craft the environment around that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're mentioning our model, Andrea, and I think, well-being is a component in our model, and it's one of those. It's a key dimension. And if you think about leaders, we were just with a group of leaders at a client yesterday, and the question we asked them was, how many of you have been on a airplane in the last month? Every hand in the room went up. I said, what is the first thing that they tell you when you sit in your seat?
Yeah.
And everyone said it out loud. Put your oxygen mask on before you could help others. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so there's like even permission to do it. Like, so if you need permission, there's permission, to do it. And there's studies that show you, like, you actually have to do that. You have to do that in order to be the best person you can be. And in our model, well-being, we talk about being, of mind, of body, of spirit, being well in those capacities, and energetically in all of those, so I think it's important. There's a robustness and there's a wholeness to this concept of well-being in our model.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's not for nothing positions on the influence dimension, because as a leader also we have an impact, and it's important that we are there. And when we crack sooner or later, the impact is huge. And I think as a leader, it really comes with a responsibility. So taking on the responsibility to take really good care of ourselves. And maybe that's a good mindset to take on, also away from the guilt thing when we take a day off, or actually give ourselves permission to rest, knowing that's a good thing. That might be the one thing that women are also sensible to, like, oh, it's a good thing. You do everybody a favor, or you might feel guilty not doing it. That might do the trick to take on well-being as a must do, and not a nice to do.
Right.
Yes, I see it with.
Go for it.
I see it with so many women that they have this tendency to take care of others first, whether it be their family, their team members, their whoever is next to them, but they put others first. And I'm saying they, but I had to learn this myself. I really had to learn this myself too. What it means to look after my own well-being first, and also look after the well-being of the ones who are near to me. But I had to turn around the sequence. Then that is something that I needed to learn, and I think many benefit from training that inside of themselves.
Well, and you said something very important there. You said, I learned to take care of myself first and take care of others. So I think our thinking often sorts it into either myself or others, or either myself or being a contribution or getting something done. And in our philosophy and model, and what you just said, Francisca, is it's both things. It's how do I make sure I'm well and accomplish what's most important to me, what I'm counted on for, and reach out a hand to other people, that it's not like it has to go back and forth. So it is integrated in our model. And what we really stand for are easy ways that people can integrate well-being into their day. Because one of the pitfalls is then for people to think, okay, well, I should do it, and I should do it every day, and it has to look this way. And then all of a sudden we're burdened by well-being because it's another thing that we're failing at. And falls into that now doing category and all that kind of stuff.
It comes to the to-do list, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a really tricky space where, Beth, back to your presence point, one of the keys is to make sure you're present so you can really make a powerful choice around, in this moment, what should I do to take care of myself and do what I'm counted on for by others, and what does take precedent. And it's more of like a continuous dialogue and an art form and a series of choices than like a definitive thing.
Right.
So a couple things. I will put, when we put this on our YouTube channel, I will put a link to our model so those of you who are not familiar with it can see what we're talking about and where well-being fits. I'll also put a link to a presence practice that we love. One of our trusted colleagues, Neela Bhatt, has a lovely presence practice that's 5 minutes long that really gets you into that moment, because really you can only discern the really true choice if you're present to yourself and everything around you. I would love, just in that spirit of easily integrating well-being into any kind of day, I'd love to hear from each of us how we do that. Like when we're not deleting the breathe reminder on our phone, or we're not getting distracted by whatever's happening around us. What have we learned to do that actually works for ourselves to make well-being a priority while not feeling like we're totally discounting everything that we're counted on for? Let's share a couple of those tips before we wrap up today.
I think for me, it's one of the things we did at the start of this, call. For me, it's connecting with people and connecting in a way that is just relaxed and casual and what's happening. So, I heard Andrea say, oh my gosh, I'm kind of overwhelmed with some things right now. And, I've learned not to take that on myself, but at the same time, just being present to and asking those questions, for me, being connected to others is a form of well-being for me.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Great.
Yeah. For me, it's important to sit down and connect with my body. Because my mind has a life of its own. It may happen to some of you as well, but it goes in all directions. And that is definitely not a place of well-being when I'm in that situation. So I really need to consciously connect with my body, take a couple of deep breaths, and it can be very quick.
Breath, stretching, lying flat on the ground, like those kinds of things to really get out of the head and into the body. It can be a great shift. Great. Andrea, how about you?
Yeah, it's so funny. I travel by car a lot when I'm in the Netherlands, and actually when it's not a traffic jam, driving my car is a well-being practice because I can really relax. I'm a very action-driven person, and actually when the car's driving, I can relax because something's moving, and I have a convertible. So and I can really see when I'm overwhelmed. Even if it's nice weather, I do not put my top down, and that's so stupid. But I don't even take time to take the stop.
No judgment there.
But you need also to have a real sense of humor about yourself. Like I think what are you doing? That's a beautiful day, and you could just take your top down and drive and stuff. So. And I also, I often drive, a lot of people like to have music on. I like driving in silence so that I can really have my thoughts sort itself out and be very present to my thought, being aware Unfortunately, I'm a good driver, so I can do that and still be driving safely. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, for myself, I would say that I will pause and try to treat myself the way I wish my business partners and my friends would treat themselves. So if I'm in
Okay.
a downward spiral and feeling like stressed or whatever, it's like, well, what would I wish that my business partners would do in this scenario? Cancel a meeting, take a break, make a phone call. So it's not the same thing every time. Or, what do I wish one of my friends would do in order to really take care of themselves? Because I think from an outside perspective, a lot of times we can see when someone's in a downward spiral or a spin, and then all of the excuses get really big and everything has to be done today. And you just wish you could just be like, really, it's going to be okay. Just like do one thing less or take 5 minutes for yourself or something like that. So that's one trick that I use on myself. It's like, well, what would I wish other people would do if they were feeling this way? And then the other for me is just to try it. Like we really have, for a long time, I had a whole thing of like, I just have to do one more thing before X, and there's always one more thing to infinity. So I had to practice like, I'm just going to try it. Like I'm just going to go to a yoga class. I'm just going to turn off my computer for 45 minutes, or 5 minutes, whatever it feels like I can. And I just try it and see what happens. And then I feel rejuvenated and everything's fine. Like you have to sometimes like actually test some of what we think has to be done by when to the scale at which it has to be done and realize that it's all good. And the most important things get done in the time that they need to get done, especially if you're present and you're having that dialogue to yourself and you're treating yourself the way you want other people to treat themselves.
Right.
Exactly.
I think it's important in this dialogue that, people, take away, and us included, that when we're talking about well-being of mind, of body, of spirit, there's so many different aspects to that. And while it's holistic, if you improve in one, if you're focused, like if Francisca says, my mind is crazy, I need to really quiet my mind, it will, have effect in other areas. So it's not like you now have 3 more things to do, to figure out, all of this. So it's a really holistic approach that has benefits in all areas for us. And just doing whatever is right in this moment is really a good piece of advice.
Yeah. I think actually one of the biggest pitfalls also is that that we, and I can certainly talk for myself, I'm not aware how unwell I am until I really crack. And also like when I really feel well, like for instance, like I feel relaxed and I enjoy that, I then feel the contrast on how I've been operating for quite some time. So actually checking in with yourself, actually asking yourself the question, how am I actually doing? And being honest to yourself. That's important too.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we are filming this or recording this on a Friday afternoon, so maybe it can inspire some folks to actually take a breather, take a breath, do something that feels good for you. Also, from a programming perspective, in about a month in June, a little over a month, we're doing a virtual Envision Your Life workshop, which is a way you can actually spend a few hours and create a plan that does integrate both what you need to feel well and fulfilled and grounded, as well as how do you focus on your top priorities and how do you create a simple roadmap that you can follow for the second half of the year that feels like it has both components included. So like I said before, in the YouTube posting of this, I'll have the model link, the presence practice link, and the link to that upcoming workshop in case someone feels like that would be perfect timing for them. Anything else before we sign off that you guys would like to say?
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing, and maybe try something very small that you can very easily do, like in half a minute, and do it for this week and see what happens.
That's good. Yeah, and you can do something half a minute. You can do
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, just don't delete it.
Not like Beth does do it. Like, Okay, so
Okay.
again, we're Tiara International. You can find us at tiara-leadership.com. Also, our Facebook page. We try to do these on Fridays. And if you like them, you can go out to our YouTube channel, Tiara International, and find more. All right, thanks, everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.